we can do more, and we should do more. And if we do more, it only means that we are producing more. We are creating more opportunities for the traders to earn more, opportunities to employ our young people, and to prosper our region.
The Tema bonded terminal, a privately managed inland container depot at the port of Tema, specialized in the handling of international maritime dangerous goods, is one of the corporate entities that have recently donated to the Apiache Support Fund. The Apiache Support Fund was set up to gather resources towards the reconstruction of the Apiache Township, which suffered a gory explosion in January this year. TBT donated 1,700 bags of cement towards the reconstruction of the town of Apiache.
It's part of our corporate social responsibility, right? As you mentioned, we're in the transport industry for dangerous goods, right? So we store, we handle, and then we deliver dangerous goods. So the explosion that took place obviously touched our hearts because we knew what safety measures needed to be taken place, right? So out of that concern, and we think it's important that we support the fund.
It would be recalled that less than a month ago, Authority-GPHA visited the Apiache Township and donated 2,000 bags of cement for the same purpose. Speaking during the official presentation of the donation, the chairperson of the Apiache Support Fund Committee, Reverend Dr. Joyce Aye, revealed that so far approximately 39.2 million in cash and kind has been raised for the Apiache Support Fund.
We are soliciting for funds to give to the Apiache Reconstruction Implementation Team to reconstruct the town, and also to help return the members of the community to as close a life as they had before. So the plan is to help them to get sustainable work so that they can put their lives together. I know a lot of times people want to give something big, but it's amazing to know that sometimes it's the little amounts en masse which also tend to be much bigger than the huge amounts that we're expecting.
The fire and safety manager at the port of Tema, Edward Heyman, indicated GPHA's resolve to continue to ensure the safe handling of dangerous cargo at the ports.
GPHA already have a system in place to monitor, to receive and monitor, store, ensure that DGs and dangerous goods move from the port safely to their destination. In fact, after these incidents, a lesson has been learned, a committee has been set, and it's ongoing reviewing our standard operation to ensure that such incidents should not happen in the port or in the corridor of Ghana.
A Namibian delegation has paid a visit to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority to strengthen bilateral relationships between the Namibian Ports Authority and GPHA. This comes on the back of an existing MOU signed in 2019 between Ghana and Namibia. The visit also served as a benchmarking exercise aimed at helping both authorities learn from each other's business processes. The General Manager, Marketing and Corporate Affairs of GPHA, Esther J.B. Donko, explained the business strategy and growth prospects of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority.
Since the opening of Terminal 3 in June 2019, we have drastically improved upon our transshipment cargo traffic. I think that we are doing over 300% increase. Of course, as a part of the ports in the sub-region, we are also competing for the transit cargo. And so we have an office located in Burkina Faso, and that office liaises with our customers there and us here to ensure that, first of all, we give the best of service to the customers there, and then also to prospect for new businesses for the transit trade.
Other management staff of GPHA also highlighted the authority's commitment to international standards of operations.
One key thing is we are very much safety inclined. We very much trying to look at standards. So as we are certified in 3 standards that we have, the 9001, 14,001, and then 45,001. There is an add-on we are already into. We've had the first stage audit as the 27,001, information security.
The delegation from Namibia also shared their business portfolio.
The main port, the port of Walfish Bay, that is our flagship in terms of Namibia and the Namibian Ports Authority as well. What we do there, we do a combination of containers. We just commissioned our new container terminal in August 2019. Capacities up to 750,000 TEUs. But why I was saying that I'm excited is that we are currently in a process of concessioning the new container terminal. And you know, your knowledge will come in handy in terms of how you handled your concessioning locally, because we're doing this for the first time.
Indigenous oil marketing company and Ghana's market leader, GOIL, continues to contribute meaningfully to Ghana's health sector. The company has recently donated 50 hospital beds to the pediatric unit of the 37 military hospital to help alleviate the incidence of shortage of beds at the hospital. The managing director and group chief executive of GOIL, Kwame Osei Prempe, indicated that as an indigenous company, GOIL deems it fit within its corporate social responsibility to always support government's efforts to upgrade the health sector.
GOIL is for Ghanaians, and therefore we are minded that wherever we can assist the public, Ghanaian public, to alleviate the suffering, to support government, we do it. Realize that that's a military hospital. It's an old hospital, but it's growing every day. If you happen to pass here, hundreds of people come here. And so we decided that we need to do something to support them.
He encouraged Ghanaians to continue patronizing the quality products at GOIL, having in mind that their monies will be invested into the country.
In Ghana, the basic petrol is RON 91. If you go to some of our competitors, they sell RON 95 at a higher price, V-Power than them. But if you come to GOIL, we sell only RON 95 at the basic price of RON 91. So if you have your car, and if you want to save money, what should you bypass GOIL and go and buy RON 91 into your car, where we can get RON 95 at the same price at the GOIL filling station.
Commanding officer at the 37 military hospital, Brigadier General Dr. Azuma Bugri, said this donation will go a long way to help the hospital carry out its mandate.
For GOIL to donate 50 beds, they have given us what can be used to build what? A hospital in some settings. That is how massive the donation is.
All right, so those were some happenings in the port and shipping industry that took place in the course of the week. We're now going to zoom into our discussion proper tonight, and tonight we're talking auction, the evolution of the customs auction regime and improved revenue mobilization, how it has evolved over the years. You would have heard that the operators of the Integrated Customs Management System, the ICOMS, are planning in the second phase to implement the e-auction. Now, we're going to go back to when we began, this auction process by customs. We're going to dig deep into the era of the Gold Coast to learn more about it and how we have evolved over the years and how this has helped or enhanced, revenue mobilization for government. And so tonight, I have the privilege of introducing to us Mr. Wallace Akondo. He is a former Commissioner, Customs Division, Ghana Revenue Authority. Good evening, Mr. Commissioner, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
We are glad to have you in our studios tonight.
Always glad to be in this beautiful setting.
Thank you very much indeed. We also have in the studios Mr. Nana Fredua Ajimayo-Furiata. He's the acting president of the Customs Brokers Association of Ghana, QBAG. Also joining us via Zoom is Forwarder Johnny Mante. Forwarder Johnny Mante is the chairman of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, Tema chapter. Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, Tema. He's joining us via Zoom. Good evening, Chairman, if you can hear us. And thank you for joining us.
Loud and clear.
Oh, fantastic. There he is.
And I'm glad to be here.
Great. I know you are quite busy. You have a paper to write, but you decided to oblige us, and so we are deeply grateful to you for that. All right, so let me begin with Mr. Commissioner in the studios and find out from you. You would have to take us back to when we actually began, auctions in customs. And I know you're going to take us to, what do we call it, the days of the Gold Coast and how this whole thing started.
Indeed, I cannot recall exactly the date, but the history says the history of Ghana customs, as we know, dates back to the later part of 18-something. Must be 1850s thereabout. And I can envisage that auctions had taken place from those days because British forebears had been trading with us. They introduced the processes of customs, and as the history revolved, at a point the director of customs was even in charge of the whole treasury of the colony.
Okay.
So revenue and revenue mobilization, which is a key component of auctioning, had been there for all these times.
Right.
If I look back at my time, and of course I had done...
You mean at your time as commissioner?
No, before my career in customs.
In customs, okay.
Yeah, which dates back to as far back as the 1970.
Talking about being a young officer who rising through the ranks.
That's a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before I joined customs, auction had been there. Ever since I had been in customs, auction had been there. So it must have been part and parcel of customs. Recently, I was researching to find out some ordinances. I was trying to trace as far back as possible if I could get evidence of the ordinance that sets up the customs process. Unfortunately, I couldn't come across one easily, but I got a lot of ordinances that make reference to wrecks, and wrecks are part of customs. You know, wrecks are items that are discovered at sea, floating along a seaside. And it talks about the treatment of those wrecks. And part of the treatment is to take custody of them and also possibly sell them in order to raise revenue. So you can see that auction has had a long history of this country, and I'm not surprised because right from day one, the customs or the agency that had been charged to mobilize revenue for government had always looked at the possibility or the possibilities of raising revenue. So customs has been a very, very long phenomenon in Ghana customs, and I'm sure before Ghana customs into the Gold Coast.
Now, before we commence the show, you mentioned the port of Jamestown.
Yeah.
And I know most people were not probably aware that we used to have the Jamestown port, even before the port of Tema, or perhaps because before the oldest that we know, that's the port of Takoradi. Can you run us through the Jamestown port?
Right. The Jamestown port far outdated the Tema port as we know it, and and therefore Takoradi port. Indeed, the history talked about even Cape Coast and Elmina at various points serving as ports. And if you know the history of Ghana and the location of the ports, it gives you a kind of indication about the trading history of this country. So Jamestown definitely predated Tema by several years. If you go to Jamestown, you look at the infrastructure there, One of the significant things you find is the lighthouse.
Right.
And the lighthouse is one of the outstanding icons of a typical port, because the lighthouse is supposed to be a beacon to direct the movement of vessels coming into port and moving out of port. So if you see the lighthouse at Jamestown, it's an indication. Now, if you look at the infrastructure, the office, what is now called the custom office, you can see a typical custom structure of a long room, a place where merchants will meet with custom house brokers and meet with sometimes passengers as well.
Right.
Yeah, so the history is indicative that Jamestown had always been a port long before we thought about Tema. There are a lot of warehouses as well in the Jamestown area. You know, the forts, and then now the forts had come to be prison houses. But those times, they were housing the seats of government, as well as serious merchandise that was taking place as trade was being exchanged between the inhabitants and then the Europeans who came to colonize us as far back as that time. So Jamestown, I remember in our days we call it British Accra. British Accra. And if you look at the architecture, and last time I was reading Honorable Amatefio's writing on him. He was trying to do something on the architecture, a write-up on the architecture of Accra. And that will show you how historical Jamestown or British Accra had been. So, yes, we've had trading with our colonial masters for a long time now. If you go to Cape Coast, you can see similar infrastructure there. Also an indication that we have had port facilities there several years ago. Of course, Takoradi is much recent. Axim, I've been forts in Axim as well, and I'm sure a lot of trade had exchanged there. There were a lot of trading, starting from exchanging human beings, the slave trade, into commercial goods. Basically, we were trading with what they could get from Africa. The produce from Africa, spices and food items, and also the minerals that they could lay hold on. And in exchange, you know, we're getting stuff like drinks, like arms. The mirror was a very known commodity that was mesmerizing our people. Mirror. Our people were mesmerized to see their faces in mirrors.
Their image,
So we read all those histories in the past, and Gold Coast, and for that matter, Ghana had a very long history of trading along the coast, and not only in Ghana but the whole coast of West Africa.
Right. Okay. So let me come to engineer forwarder Johnny Mante. I want to make you an engineer by force, and find out from you. You represent importers, exporters, and the trading community, and you are the interface between them and their activities in the port. And sometimes you would have come across instances where commodities or goods that your cargo that your clients bring pass for auction. Have you had that experience before? And what would you say is your assessment of the auction process as we have it at the moment? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Good. Well, thank you once again. At the moment, it's interesting to hear Commissioner give us a background and the history of auctions in Ghana. Yet, what we see today is a big variation of what used to be in the time. Today, you hardly even hear about auctions, especially within our space, due to, I don't know whether it's the law, the Act 634, that actually regulated that space in terms of the allocation or the apportionment of cargo. Obviously, you would understand that anytime goods are gazetted, 70% is allocated to either the allocation committee or the confiscation and assets committee, and then the 30 is left for Ministry of Finance, I think, in the Commissioner General's office, for them to look at it. And in the same space, within that 30%, then whatever is left is goes to auction. So basically, auction within our space, as we speak today, hardly occurs. And even if it occurs, like I told you, cargo that is earmarked for auctioning is already split 70 to this committee, and then 30. Within the 30, you have to look at how much is left for auctioning, really. So it's something, this topic that you have raised today is something that is dear to many hearts. In fact, how cargo even is due for auction is another matter that we can discuss. As we speak now, there is issues that is ongoing within our space, within the port that we are contending with. I know the Minister of Finance and the National Security is trying to step in, but of course the processes and procedures are something that's alien to us, and it's still something that we have to look at. So yes, auction as per our books still persists, but the point is that you hardly hear about auction as in auction now. Basically, what you would know of is allocations. Containers are allocated, and that's basically the problem that we are facing now. You would find people who have brought in cargo, they are ready to pay, most even have paid, and then by the time you realize the cargo is nowhere to be found, you go and they tell you it's been allocated. So it's important that we look at that space very, very well and try and put some proper regulations within. I know ICOMs lately have started something with the UCL where it's really easy, where cargo has gone on UCL. That's on there's something they call undeclared cargo list. Yeah. Yes, you do an application on the online, and if the cargo is still sitting in the port, then you are granted a relief where you go and pay your state warehouse rent and you go and clear your cargo. Yet there are vendors in the port who are just emptying containers. You ask them where they are coming from. You don't even know where they are coming from. The names that the quarters from which they claim they come from, you would marvel. And it's not something that we should condone as we speak. It makes rubbish of all the paperless processes and all the process that we put in place to ensure that we have a smooth implementation of the trade facilitation agreements that we've made, and to ensure that people are able to move their cargo smoothly. But at the moment, if you talk about auctions, there is basically little to talk about.
All right, let me stay with you a little more for the Johnny Mante. With respect to the issue of allocation, you mentioned 70% to the committee and 30% to the Ministry of Finance. Is that what it is supposed to be? And what's the committee supposed to do with it, with the 70%?
Good question. If you look at the Act 634, if I'm right, I mean, that act has actually been repealed. 2002 Act 634, it's been repealed. As to whether there is another act that regulates that space in terms of the confiscation, was it confiscation committee, they call them, assets and confiscation committee. I don't know if there's another act that replaced the 634, but to the best of my knowledge, the 634 2002 has been repealed. So which means that that committee itself should not find its place within our space. The regulations we have, and if you look at the 891 per the rules we have, basically when any cargo after 14 days, after 7 days, which means that the cargo has elapsed the statutory that the law mandates it goes on state warehouse rate. So when it goes after the 7 or 14 days, that is 7 days when it's perishable item and 14 days when it's usual cargo. What happens is that it is deemed to have entered into what? Rent. So what you do is that you pay what you call state warehouse rent. ICOMs have made that easy, which means that once your cargo goes on UCL, you only do an application on your system. The customs guys at the other end will check if it is true that you have fulfilled all the requirements and your cargo is released to you to go and pay. Now, this allocation committee, I don't know where they are. I don't know how they came about, because like I told you, the 634 is no longer in place. All right. But 70% of the cargo goes to them. 70% of all gazetted cargo goes to them. So what they do is that they look at the list and they choose what they want. And the 30% goes to the Ministry of Finance, GRA, and then all the other agencies. And the same 30% goes for, they have to, deduce what amount goes for auction. So basically, like I told you, auction is non-existent. And there are vendors who actually, go to auctions to buy stuff. But now, you and I can no longer wait for anything
for the Monte, are we merely speculating? Are we merely speculating about the 70% to the committee? Because I'm still finding it difficult to wrap my head around how a committee that has been instituted to see to the auction of cargo from the ports would be allocated 70%, as much as 70%, to do what with it? When the cardinal objective is to raise revenue for government.
Well, that's what it is. That's what it's been. I mean, you can find out from the commissioner who is sitting.
We have Mr. Commissioner here. Let me find out from you. You heard for the Monte, who has indicated that there's no auction. Auction is now non-existent. It's just by way of math. And that when the list comes, 70% is allocated to the committee. What committee? And 30% to the Ministry of Finance. Is this true when you were commissioner? Was this the case?
The evolution, the history of auction is very trite and very dynamic. And like he's saying, he's talking about specialized allocations. He's talking about there is auction, but you don't see much of it. He's talking about 30%. Over the period, the process of auctioning had taken various shapes and nuances. Time was when, in order to decongest the port, for example, as business and trade gets bigger and bigger, there was the need to move cargo out of the port faster. Sometimes to find space for the cargo outside of the port area. And I remember in the early days of the military interregnum, for example, we have to take cars all the way from Tema to around Elwak. The Ministry of Agri had a department there. There was a lot of space in order to park cars that had, overstayed days in the port. You agree with me that for a port, one of the most expensive pieces of land in any country is the port. Can you imagine how much space or how many containers you could take if you look at the space that one car takes, for example? So it was becoming very uneconomical. So we started moving some of those
vehicles.
Now, over time also, government realized that some of these items, like cars and others, could have been used to satisfy some of these obligations and policies. For instance,
logistical constraints, vehicles,
because of physical constraints,
ministries, departments, and agencies. And so sometimes they fall on these vehicles.
Right, doctors that needed to be transported, and teachers, etc., etc. So some of these allocations were made. That was the beginnings of the allocations.
Right.
Now it moved from hitherto public servants who had gone on courses abroad could bring in their vehicles free of duty. Those things, as austerity moves in, and the country could barely, afford those. Was constrained. So we could allocate. The government could allocate some of these
to such professionals.
To such professionals, and that was the beginning of the allocations. Over time, it changed, or it added from vehicles to other goods, etc., etc., and etc. And it has transcended most regimes, most governments. most governments.
Right.
I had seen quite a number of governments in my career, at least. And it was a good way to project their policies and also to as I said, as the head of state or the president moves around, the demands on him, most everywhere he goes, he uses some of these processes to be able to. So, yes, we're trying to kill two birds with one stone. We're trying to live up to fulfilling our obligations to the Ghanaian public, making those goods available to them. At the same time, we're also having an eye on the revenue that we could earn from it, so we don't keep the goods in a place until they are deteriorated. There have been times where some of the goods have been in the port for several years, and by the time you get to them, everything are deteriorated, you have lost nothing. You would rather give this thing out and, rake in as much as you can get than to wait and get it or as it were, perished.
Yeah.
So the auction process had really gone through a lot of changes. I can understand and appreciate what Johnny is talking about. Those days, auctions are advertised openly, and we get people trooping to the port to participate in public auctions and so on. But besides the open market public auctions, allocations are also legal and they are permissible. Sometimes too, we give opportunity for the owners, the opportunity of what we call the first option.
Yes.
When they apply to the commissioner, for that matter.
Yeah. The first option is when, if I'm an importer and I bring in my goods and it's due for auction,
right,
I can apply to the commissioner
but
and I'll be given priority.
We need to understand what auction is about. Auction is the result of committing a customs offense.
Yes.
It's a result.
Because we've not been able to clear within the stipulated time allowed.
We need to have a basic understanding of what auction is. We have the process for entering goods and clearing them from the port.
Yeah.
Right. The extreme case of auction is the process of condemning the goods because they have either offended, either they were seized, either they offended the customs law, they were not cleared on time, they were abandoned, any offense. Right. So auction is at the tail end of a series of activities. So there is an offense, there's an offense first, then the goods are detained, from detention is converted into seizure, from seizure is converted into forfeiture. Now all these steps are to give the importer or the owner of the goods opportunity to rectify and remedy the offense, and then, to remedy the goods. Yeah. Now, eventually, when neither of these happens, then the goods are confiscated to the state. At that point, the owner loses the right of ownership.
Yes.
It becomes the property of the state. Now, you can now understand the state representing the government when it decides that as part of its state,
Mr. Commissioner, if you can pull your mic close to you so that you'll be audible enough. Fantastic.
So you can understand if the government thinks that as the representative of the state, if you have these goods on your hand that had offended some of the rules that you have set, what do you do to it? The government has the right to even condemn it. Right. At a point in time, there was legislation to even just destroy vehicles that had overstayed their stay in the port.
Right.
Because the overstay in the port was costing space. It was costing us space. goods that were coming in could not find space
In the port,
in the port. So at a point, it was legislated that those vehicles should be stripped of the
ownership of the
and then we forfeited it and then destroyed it. So it is the right of the state to determine disposal. Once it's confiscated, it becomes a property of the state. So you can also now understand the interest in various governments in controlling how the disposal of such confiscated items are. Like I'm saying, the state could instruct that destroy. The state could say allocate to this person who the government would have otherwise looked for resources to dole out, physical resources to present a facility or the other. But in spite of that, like he said, as much as possible, sometimes we still have glimpses or we still have evidence of public auctions. Not only in Tema, at the other ports and other stations. And in my time, I know the teams move from place to place, Kumasi, Aplau, Sunyani, and these are not only goods that are seized entering the goods, entering into the jurisdiction. These are goods that have offended the custom laws, even seized on our roads, like vehicles that entered without proper registration and without paying of duty. And these goods, some of them were arrested and kept at the barracks at the airport. And sometimes you have to dispose of them because they have stayed
my interest, Mr. Commissioner, has to do with the 70%, 30% thing. Was that so in your time? I just want a brief response.
These are administrative measures that have been put in place. Again, like I'm saying, essentially to reflect the interests of government. Government has interest in the goods that are being condemned. As well, government had the problem and the headache of attending to other needs, and at the same time, government has an eye on how to regulate and rake in revenue. So auctioning is actually a mode of revenue mobilization.
Absolutely. That's the cardinal aim at the moment. Yeah, as it is. Okay, so from your response, I perhaps deduce that what for the Johnny Mante said with respect to the allocations, the 70-30 is perhaps correct.
Yes, I don't know the proportion now. I don't know, but I think it was around that. The origins was this go way back before this government. I mean, governments had come and gone.
Subsequent.
But that was it. Part of it is allocated. Part of it goes on the mat for public auction.
Let me come to you, Nana Fredio Ajimayo Ofreata, and find out from you. Like I put to for the Johnny Mante, you are the interface between the trading public, the importers, exporters, and then the port community. And so you have had occasions where perhaps commodities or goods that your clients have brought in have crossed onto the uncleared cargo list and perhaps due for auction. Have you had any such experience? And have you had occasions where perhaps you personally felt a bit disgruntled about the process, leading to the auction of such commodities, or maybe whether you received complaints from your clients?
Well, thank you very much. The area of auction is a very contentious one. And Commissioner has had a difficulty trying to lay the facts bare. That should tell you it's very contentious. Well, what's auction? Auction, we all know, is a public sale. That's what it's supposed to do. Of goods that government has probably put his hand on and says, we have to sell them off to raise revenue. But the processes, the procedures, it's all clouded, if I'm allowed to say. It's almost clouded in secrecy. There's no real transparency. Of course, government has an interest, and the government is who? The government represents the state in all of this. But we as the trading community and then the public at large, we also are interested in it because government raising revenue will be, at the end of the day, used for public good. So when these things there's some bit shrouded in some form of secrecy. That's what raises the antennas, and everybody is interested. I've had, clients calling and complaining. I haven't had a personal one, but because we had associations, we have our members coming to basically, say things that we cannot say, in a space like this, because we have situations where importers have actually managed to pay duty even at the very last minute. And because of the delay in raising the revenue to pay the said duties, they probably have attracted some rent. And they've paid the duty looking for the mopping up funds to come and clear the rent that's accrued. And before this, you could say, Jack, the container is found at Amaris or one of these terminals, half empty. It's been opened and they are still cutting things out. We had to get Tema police involved in some of the situations. So we feel there's even some cabal that's operating within the port space when it comes to auctions and allocations and things like that. And that is where we have a problem. But as to the idea of auction in general, it's a good one. Government needs to raise revenue. And that's the last resort. Like Commissioner alluded to, from detention, seizure, forfeiture, confiscation, and then final disposal. The mode of disposing has always been the problem. Because we don't get to know. We are supposed to be members of the community. He says several regimes have come and they are always, it's almost like a work in progress. We still are not too certain. At some point, a group of the reefer people, almost raised red flags. They were ready to hit the road and go and demonstrate and say, because the rate at which, when it comes to reefers, frozen good, before you know, it's been allocated to somebody for, in fact, when the whole idea is to raise at least the minimum is the import duties on the goods. And when you hear some of the allocations, the rates people are paying for these things, they are way below the import duty. So you ask yourself, why don't they give it to the importer who brought it? If government is ready to drop the rate to that extent, why don't you give it to the person who labored to buy the thing in the first place to pay for the freight and all that?
Yes.
Because you said the first right of refusal should go to the person. But if you are ready to allocate, first option, if you are ready to allocate it to somebody at almost nothing, then why don't you consider the poor person who brought it in the first? Because he had good intentions, especially for things like, reefer. In the reefer space, it's a bit, like I say, it's a very contentious area. So we pray that something will be done in this space, because we've had even situations where people actually wants to attack people. He has identified his car being driven by somebody, and he's so. There are so many cases we can't talk about them here. But the real issues are that I remember Shippers Authority has done a few seminars that we've participated in on shedding light and trying to see how we can develop some SOP in this regard. Because it's been evolving. It's almost a work in progress. We should have some standard, operating procedures when it comes to these. Once it's gone through the phases, we know what the law says. But when it gets to the point of disposal, where it's going to be either allocated, it's going to be auctioned, or 70-30, whatever it is, it needs to be plain and transparent. Because the thing about shipping and our whole industry borders on predictability. You should be able to know from the get-go that if I bring in my stuff, I fail to do, these are the measures that will follow. It shouldn't change at some point depending on who is there or what. That's the problem people have. Right. But if you know this is the process and it won't change, then, everybody is comfortable. But where you've paid the duty, like I'm saying, you manage to actually pay the duty, you're looking for the other charges that, ancillary, and then your goods have disappeared. By the time you've written to commissioner, for the extension, that 14 days addition that comes on. By the time you go there and you find the container somewhere, we've had issues where people have gone to Community 2 and Community 1 to go and collect their motorcycles that are supposed to be, they have applied for extension to pay, and is already in town being sold.
Wow. All right.
This is very interesting. But again, I want to turn his mind back again, that auction is at the tail end of offense.
Yes. So it means that you've been given time, the time has elapsed.
In customs, that's why we always say that facilitation is a flip side of compliance. You know, nobody will just go and take your goods if there is no offense, if you have not exhausted all these remedies.
Yeah.
It's painful. I can understand how he feels. I've heard this argument severally.
Yes.
We have tried to make it sometimes, even as customs. Sometimes we had talked or presented a view of the importer. But again, like I'm saying, if you go to some administrations, just to insist on compliance as a punitive measure, the goods are not even redeemed. They are destroyed. Just to ensure that there is complete compliance.
Yes.
Of course, in our case, third world countries and developing countries, we need revenue, so we have to be. In most jurisdictions, advanced countries, if you do not comply, they just crash your car. For example, they just take it out of the port and then they crash it. Because the port, again, is the most expensive piece of land in any jurisdiction. So you cannot afford to use the port as a warehouse or a garage for your car. Now, if you are going to be an importer, you know you have to import your vehicle. And the information is available. The laws have been passed. Information is made known to the forwarders, the freight forwarders, who are the intermediary between the public and the customs. The laws are there. We know the laws. We know the procedures. We know what one is likely to be. Friends call me from outside. We want to bring this car, I'll give you the advice. I'll tell you exactly what it is. Some of them would try and comply. Some of them would try to go around, circumvent the system. Now, when it happens like this, I can only sympathize with you, but it doesn't lie within me to, as it were, also offend the law by trying to pacify or make it easier for you. So we must understand that basically it is an issue of compliance.
Right.
And you can introduce the human element. We can think about how best to to go around the procedure, make it transparent. I agree, yes. But essentially, it is that you have not, or you have offended one customs law or the other, or a process or a procedure. And that's the bottom line.
Right.
And when it comes to that, you cannot also pick and choose what kind of punishment one can go through when you offend the law.
Right.
Of course, there are facilities where you can. In the extreme case where somebody had paid duty and is about to. If you have a problem, approach the commissioner or his delegated officers at the various ports. I mean, we are human. There's a lot of discretion that the sector commanders. I have been in charge of Tema Harbours. I had worked in Tema Harbours several times. Even at our level, when we're mid-management, there was a lot of discretions that we could exercise. Once you could see the seriousness of the importer, the idea is not to seize things from one Ghanaian and give it to another one. You know, but people wait until the worst happens before they take the steps. But it would be very good to make an approach to the commissioner.
Right.
And he has facilities to, you know.
All right, so let me come to for the Johnny Mante, if you are still on the line and you can hear me loud and clear. Commissioner has alluded to the fact that, yes, this allocation thing that you mentioned perhaps was an administrative or is an administrative measure premised on the fact that the government has a lot of interest in goods that go onto the UCL and, subsequently for auction. Now, I know you would have heard that during the phase 2 of ICOM's implementation, there will be the e-auction. Do you think that this is the panacea to some of the ambiguities that you have surrounding the auction process as we have it at the moment?
Thank you again, Kenny. What we have to understand is that I think both of your panelists have mentioned the right thing, as in we need clarity within the process. I mean, before I answer your question, I mean, recently we cited a letter from the Minister of Finance basically trying to take charge of all the things that are going on within the port in terms of allocation of containers or auctioning of big containers. Of course, you would realize that there are people who have actually genuinely paid their duties, genuinely paid, their shipping line charges, genuinely paid port charges, yet they cannot take their containers. Some of them go to the port and the containers cannot be found. What is going on within our space? That is the question we need to ask. Look, your topic says, is it evolution of auctions and revenue mobilization?
Mobilization, yes.
Even when containers have been allocated, check how much these people paid. That is what we are looking at. I'm sure that's what Minister of Finance is so concerned about, for which reason they've taken those steps. Of course, the steps they are taking, though that is, they want to ensure that we can mobilize revenue. Unfortunately, I must say that the processes has not been that excellent. I had a situation where Ministry of Health has brought in AIDS vaccines, paid all their duties, yet the containers were still in the port, and they will not be allowed. The guys at the port were saying, "Look, we cannot allow you to exit." What is going on? Fredia mentioned clarity. What are the processes? If you come to the port, look, within the transport chain, lots of things happen. Bills of lading gets missing in transit, and name it. Lots of issues happen. You have 14 days. The point is that Commissioner has alluded to the fact that auction is at the tail end. Let's get that clarity, so you know that if after 14 days, granted after 14 days, you lose your cargo. Let people know. Let people understand that after 40 days, you have no means of getting your cargo. Like I told you, the ICOMS recently deployed on their platform what they call the UCL application platform, where after your cargo has gone on a certain period of the statutory 14 days, that is if they are basic cargo, you apply, and if the cargo is still available, I mean, just on the system, but all that is being stalled at the moment. I have had the opportunity of meeting Commissioner General about 4 times on this matter. And I mean, we don't know where we're going on this issue. He is very concerned as well. How do we resolve this matter? Of course, all stakeholders have to come and go. But the point is that, like, again, Fredia said, there is a cabal in the port. Where they're from, we all know. And it's about time we begin to get name these guys, okay, and ban them from coming to the port. They come to the port with, I'm from national security, and you find out they are not from national security. They hold stuff and they come to the port, opening containers left, right, center. Look, it's not easy for any Ghanaian to travel outside and bring in any container.
Right.
Sometimes $40,000, $50,000. You come to town and duties, and don't forget recently our taxes, benchmark values went up, exchange rate has been, a little bit distorted a little bit. So people are actually trying to find money, and you go and your container that you are supposed to pay a duty of about 100,000, they've given it to somebody for 30,000 cedis.
All right. So will the e-auction be a panacea?
Of course. I mean, e-auction, if we have, it's not about e-auction. Yes, it's good, but the point is that where you wouldn't, there is even no cargo to auction. What's the essence of it? Do you understand what I'm saying? The cargo is already gone, either through auction or wherever, either through allocation or all the other regimes that Commissioner mentioned. So, of course, if e-auction comes, the point is that ICOMS should be given the opportunity to use the system to work. So if after 40 days, the processes that are there, it should make clear, everybody knows the processes. Customs probably should go on a sensitization agenda to let importers know. We've started it. At Ghana Institute of Free for, we've started it. Right. All the other associations have started. We are, in fact, in the process of meeting the finance minister to deliberate on these issues. It is becoming one too many. You have people who are stopping containers after they've gone out of the port and claiming that they are from national security. Some say they are from Minister of Finance. Some have even said that they are from the office of the Minister of Finance. These are evidence that are available.
Right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, we'll come back to you, but just don't go away. We'll have to go for a break now. This is Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television, and tonight we're discussing the evolution of customs auction regime and enhanced or improved revenue mobilization. With me in the studios, Mr. Wallace Akondo, former Commissioner, Customs Division, Ghana Revenue Authority, Mr. Nana Frederick Ajiban Ofriata, acting president of the Customs Brokers Association of Ghana. You just also heard via Zoom, Forwarder Johnny Mante, who is the chairman of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, Tema District. We'll be back right after this break. Please do stay with us.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse. And my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the high seas, covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
Mps Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
All right, so you're welcome back. This is Zion Port here on Metropolitan Television. Remember, before we went on the break, you had some views from my guests in the studios and Mr. Johnny Mante on Zoom with respect to how far we've come, we've evolved as far as our auction processes are concerned. And tonight we're just trying to take a look at how far we've come and what we can do going forward. And so let me announce at this moment that our phone lines have been activated. You can call in. The number to dial is 020-552-8353, 020-552-8353. You can call in and contribute to the discussion. Pretty shortly, we shall be coming to your messages as well to see what you have for us. But let me come to Commissioner Akando once again and find out from you. Most of the time, you have people complain like the sentiments shared by Nana Fredia and then Johnny Mante with respect to the rate at which some of these goods are sold. Now, if I have brought in a car worth, let's say, $70,000 or $50,000, and this car I'm unable to clear perhaps because I'm not able to pay the duty. Let's say the duty is around $30,000, $40,000. I'm not able to afford it. And it goes on to the UCL and eventually passes for auction. And I get to learn that this car has been given out to somebody for 3,000 Ghana cedis or 5,000 Ghana cedis. Definitely, I'm not going to take it lightly. And these are some of the things. And I understand that at some point, the law or the agreement, so to speak, was that customs would have to take the duty on that particular vehicle that's going on auction so that we make up, for the revenue. Was this what you practiced when you were commissioner?
I'm happy you brought this up. If you experience a situation where you claim, or there's a claim, that the goods that have been auctioned are at a price lower than the tax inherent on it, then it's a grievous error. Because the practice of auction is to redeem the tax that is payable.
Right.
And I need to make that very clear. The government, and for that matter, the customs, is not interested in the price or the cost to you that the goods involved have been. If you spent 100,000 cedis to acquire the goods, the government may not necessarily be interested in the price of the goods to you. What the government is interested in is the revenue that is inherent in the goods. How much tax would be redeemed in the goods? If the tax to be redeemed is just 20,000 cedis, for example, that is the interest of government. The goods will be appraised to ensure that, at the minimum, that element of tax or revenue is redeemed. Now, if the claim is that people are buying these goods allocated to them at prices below the inherent taxes, that would be a very, very grievous error. And that one, the attention of the commissioner should be drawn to it, and it should be remedied.
Right.
Because the essence of the auction is to redeem.
Yes.
But we make some mistakes. Sometimes the original importer brings an old vehicle. And under the regime, our laws says, in addition, especially for vehicles, in addition to the taxes that are due, there are penal provisions for bringing a certain age of vehicles,
right?
Especially. And that was because it was proven that the older the vehicle, the more consumption of fuel and other accessories, and that becomes a burden on the government as well.
Right.
So we introduce levels of penalties in order to discourage people from bringing in.
So the higher your vehicle consumes, the higher you pay.
Right, you pay for it.
Yeah.
And the other hand, the flip side of it was to encourage those who were bringing newer cars to appear to be paying lesser and lesser. So somebody could have been bringing more than a 10-year-old vehicle. As far as he was concerned, in addition to the tax, they had also levied a penalty.
Right.
So maybe the tax was, let's say, 5,000 cedis, and the penalty could have gone as far as much as 15,000 cedis. So in all, he was due to have paid 20,000 cedis. Now he could not, or was struggling to pay that. Now when we are going to, as it were, to value this car, to have a reserve price for auction, we'll be looking at only the duty, and not the penalty. Because the one we are auctioning the car to has not committed any customs offense.
Right.
He's rather helping the customs, and the government for that matter, to redeem the tax that is inherent, which is locked up.
On the vehicle, yeah, sure.
Which is locked up in the vehicle. And so it will not be considerate for the government to, in addition to the tax that the person is helping us redeem, saddle him with a penalty for an offense that he has not committed. So in those cases, for example, most people complain, but we try to explain to them that whereas the original importer had really offended the law, and the law is public knowledge.
Yes.
So if you willy-nilly offend the law, you are entitled to a penalty. But if you don't, and somebody else is helping us to redeem the tax and helping us to mobilize the tax, it will be unfair on the part of the customs to add the penalty to the buyer of the goods when he has not committed any offense. So in that situation, to most people, it will appear as if the car is being sold to another Ghanaian who is not an importer. The importer is being asked to pay something higher, and the Ghanaian is getting access to something much lower than what they're asking him to do.
Right.
Besides those specific issues, especially of vehicles, if there is evidence or if there is any appearance that goods are being allocated or openly sold at prices far lower than the duties that are, exigible on the products, then it's a grievous error.
Right.
That one should be reported and properly investigated. Yes, because as far as I'm concerned, you must have to do a proper appraisal of the goods. First of all, you would have to gazette the goods, describe it as much as you can, and after condemning it and having put up the regulation, having gazetted it, which means that you are giving public notice to whoever those goods belong, that this is the status of your goods now. You must come back. That's the work of the state warehouse officers. You must come back, physically open all the boxes of the goods and appraise the value of the goods.
Right.
You must have to assess the tax and appraise value. And normally the appraised value is a little higher than the tax that is redeemable, because we make provision for genuine people who may come after the sale of the goods, who may apply for what we call the surplus proceeds.
Right. Okay. All right, so let's get into the inbox. And this one from Solomon says, please ask Mr. Akondo if auction can ever be scrapped and what impact it will make or have on government revenue.
It's possible. Like I had intimated when we started, there are some jurisdictions that don't even want to believe in the auction. For them, it is not the issue of the revenue. And as you know, in most developing countries, revenue, import revenue, constitutes just a minute fraction of total revenue. They have other sources of revenue. In some jurisdictions, import duties and they constitute just about 5 to 10% of national revenue. So for them, compliance may take precedence over revenue. So in some jurisdictions, like I said, they would outrightly just, once you offend the customs law, the biggest penalty is levied. Sometimes not cash or physical penalty, but outright confiscation, and then they destroy the item. For example, vehicles, they will scrap them and then roll them over in a mill, and they can use that as input or raw material for other manufacturers. Yeah, so maybe Ghana, well, as we develop, and as the AFTA also improves, where we'll not be forced to rely so much on custom import revenues, but we'll be relying a lot more on domestically generated revenue, like the sales tax, like the VAT, etc., etc. Then we'll be doing a lot more punitive actions to enforce the customs law.
Right. Okay, this one says, in 2013-2014, my BMW X5 was taken, and I was asked to go to the castle and pay 4,000 Ghana cedis, even though it wasn't out of date. I was having my duty intact, but always my papers kept getting missing. What can account for this, Mr. Commissioner?
Well, I'm sorry. I pity him, but Ghana, I've heard stories about getting your papers missing in various ministries and offices where you go to transact business. I don't think it's good enough. And also, I think public servants must also be forthright. since I've been in office, it's my duty to, as much as explain to you why I do what I have to do. In fact, there was an embarrassing case where a very prominent chief in this country, very, very close to me, had a very important commodity which he imported into this country. It's a very scarce commodity. You can't easily get it. And, you know, it was auctioned. There were goods in the port that had been in the port for several years. Unfortunately, I think somebody had an eye on this particular one. And so at the least opportunity when the good was condemned, you know, before, you know, I could have notice of it, I was so embarrassed. So I was trying to go through the auction list to see if I could get a similar product in order to substitute. Unfortunately, the quality of the product that my boss brought in was not what was readily available. And till today, it's been a very big source of embarrassment to me. You know, so I would only advise the public that sometimes we just chance on, sometimes a gift. Somebody might gift you a car abroad. It would be very important to find out from home what is the current situation at home, what are the obligations. And this time, information is readily available. It's on the net.
Yeah, sure.
The agents, the freight forwarders are becoming very professional now. Most of them are very, very conversant with the rules and the processes. So I did not agree at all with Johnny that as for information, we have the information is readily available. So they should be able to pass on the information to their clients and advise them. You know, and that should be our duty. So the information is available, but the Ghanaian should also try to seek information before deciding.
Let's take a call from Adams. He's calling us from WA. I understand he's been on the line for quite some time now. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, boss.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Please flow.
Yeah, is there any short code? Like I'm buying a car from US, and I want to know the duty before I can pay for the car.
Oh yes, yes. You can go to the this platform. Yes, I think
Ghana's Trading Hub.
Yes, Ghana's Trading Hub. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when you go to Ghana's Trading, go on Google and just type Ghana's Trading Hub. It will load.
Ghana Trading.
Yeah. Hub.
Ghana Trading.
Trading Hub. Yeah.
Ghana Trading Hub. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to, I mean, put in the details there, and then you have a fair estimation of your duty to be paid.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much indeed.
So information is readily available anywhere in the world. Right now, it's even on the net. So even before originating the import, whoever is bringing the goods from foreign can always assess how much it will cost to do, how long he must stay in the port. All the legislation and the processes are obviously clear. Johnny was talking about ICOMS.
Yeah.
Well, ICOMS, I agree. ICOMS is only going to facilitate what's on paper. But again, I always insist that all these e-processes, they must always follow the law.
Right.
The ICOMS would make it transparent, will make it available, but the ICOMS will not replace the law.
Okay.
Yeah, so the law must be followed and complied with.
All right, so this one, he's watching from Facebook. He's watching live on Facebook. Okay, I understand we have Kojo from Dansuman. We're running out of time, but let's just go there and then pick him. Hello, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to commend you for this show, and I really want you to discuss this topic the next time we have the opportunity. I want you to really discuss this topic.
Right.
And my question has to do with revenue mobilization for the government. I think if you are to open the auction so that more people could come in, talking about tax component that government want to retrieve. Let's say the tax component you want to retrieve is 5,000. But when you open the auction so wide that a lot of people can come in, you can even make more than the 5,000 that we are looking for. rather than selling it low and all in the name of making retrieving the tax component. Meanwhile, we can make a lot of money from that particular vehicle or any other commodity on that. So I think we need to open the auction market so that we could raise a lot of money. At the end of the day, if government is taking a lot of money over there, it will cause the duty component to reduce.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We are grateful to you for your call. This one says, so from this explanation, can the car be sold to the original importer when it's due for auctioning, or after forfeiture, the owner fails to win during the auction process? Well, I think that if we apply the first option rule, the owner can get to buy the car back. Well, I think that we are running out of time, seriously. This one says, hi, Kennedy. They can check the homepage of ICOMS, external.unipasghana.com. Okay, so from Adams, the one that called from WA, this is a response from ICOMS. It says, you can check the homepage of ICOMS, external.unipasghana.com. Unipasghana is one word, .com, and click on the used vehicle calculator. Once the details are entered, the estimated duties and taxes will be done. And so when you go in there, you'd find the model, the year, and all that. You click on them, and then the duty definitely would come. So if you want to buy a car, you want to check the duty before you import it, that's what to do. Go to external.unipasghana.com, and then you'll be able to get it. I think that we are just behind time. And so for those of you whose messages we haven't taken, you can check out the abridged version on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Ghana Television, and then we'll get some responses for you. We'll put them there and get some responses for you. And I would like to say a big thanks here to Commissioner Wallace Akando. He is a former Commissioner Customs Division, Ghana Revenue Authority, who graciously joined us this evening to have this very beautiful discussion. I also say a very big thanks to Nana Fredio Ajimayo Furiata, Acting President, Customs Brokers Association of Ghana, QBAG, and indeed to Father Johnny Mante, who joined us via Zoom. He is the President or Chairman, Tema, that's Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders. The name is Kennedy Mona. Well, today Samson Asaki, Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association, is celebrating his birthday. So happy birthday to you. Yesterday was also the birthday of one of my colleagues, Malik Adams, Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Marketing and Corporate Affairs. We wish you the best, glad tidings and good fortune in this season. God willing, next week we shall bounce back with another wonderful edition of Eye on Port here on Metro TV. The name is Kennedy Mona. We wish you a super week ahead and enjoy your evening.